Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Hello/X/. I've never made a post on here before, so pardon me if my formatting is garbage. My interest was piqued when I stumbled upon a Government X Project Alien Tech thread on another board and decided to post my own. I have a story I'd like to share, with actual photographic evidence and an eyewitness testimony from my dad. My father was a Cav Scout in the late 80s and early 90s. While he was out patrolling as opposing force during a training exercise, he had spotted and photographed a strange craft over the Nevada desert. He watched for approximately 15 minutes before it vanished off into the distance, pic-related. I was unable to get any better pictures, as this was taken from a Polaroid disposable camera, so I'm sorry that the image looks like shit. The image in question shows what looks to be a type of disc-shaped object. I cross-referenced multiple pictures from both alien and human origins and came to the conclusion that this thing looks like Nikola Tesla's 1928 patented two-seater craft. I recommend Googling it and cross-referencing yourself for comparison. The visual is very similar, even at such a terrible resolution. There are two pictures, but I am unable to get the second one at this time. My father is currently looking for the other one as we speak, so I can try to share it with you all once he finds it. I'm unsure if this is of alien or human origin. I'm leaning towards the latter because this seems to be a very human design from the looks of it. My father is an old and quiet Christian man, has no belief in UFOs or aliens, and hasn't shared this with anyone else but me. It puzzles me that after seeing something like that he never shared this with any media outlet or other family members. He was very casual about it and never tried to convince me about its authenticity. This is what he told me when I asked him to describe what he saw that day. I was sitting in my Humvee watching over a road for the opposing force, and I kept noticing something moving left to right in the distance. I thought it was just a helicopter at first, because a few had been out flying that day, but it was flying weird. I couldn't hear anything. It was really strange. I was alone, so I couldn't even ask anyone what they thought about it. If this thread is up by the time my dad finds the second photo, I will post it so everyone else can see and analyze it. Does anyone have an explanation for what my dad may have seen?
Many nations in history have made similar airships. The Nazis were the first to attempt to create this tech. An Operation Paperclip saw this project finished in the United States and potentially other nations such as the Soviet Union. They were built off of stolen Nazi tech, like the V-2 rockets or jet engines. The reason why these are left as unidentified to the public is because for some reason, governments of the world won't release the fact they have made a flying saucer and have since at least the early 50 eras. Flying saucer sightings aren't common anymore, maybe because better airships have been designed, but during the 20th century they were certainly made. All of human origin, designed by the Nazis, perfected by the Americans.
Which makes a lot of sense. The technology for cloaking or stealth technology was very limited when the first few craft were being developed, so it was probably more commonplace to see them flying around when they thought nobody was looking.
What's the source for the two-seater craft? Where is it from? By Googling, I could only find random pictures with no sources, and other Tesla aircraft patents have propellers, no UFOs.
I may have made a mistake on the patent. There is very vague information on his patent for a UFO-esque craft. However, you can find photos of it by Googling something like Nikola Tesla UFO patent 1928 for pictures and sketches. He did receive a patent for a VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing like aircraft, but not sure where that went in regards to development. A lot of his parents and work were confiscated by the FBI after his death, so it's possible that he had sketched an idea for one, but it isn't publicly known.
Most likely, it was an aircraft being tested out of Tonopah, or the bombing range that straddles Death Valley National Park and National Training Center, and Fort Irwin. The shape in the picture could be a typical flying saucer, but it could also be an ordinary jet viewed from the side or back. There is literally no possible way to prove what it was one way or another, and your options are to chalk it up to the closest reasonable cause, or endlessly speculate to no real avail.
I tried to rationalize it as much as I could. My father was unsure what it was as well. He stated that it made zero noise when it was flying, and that it wasn't a helicopter. There were helicopters out that day, but he never explicitly stated it was an alien craft of any sort. I assume he chalked it up to it being a weird prototype craft and just forgot about it afterwards. I came to the conclusion it was a human-made prototype model craft, judging by the shape and size. I doubt aliens had anything to do with this one. It's really difficult to figure out any details because he took these photos on a dumpy-ass disposable, so there's little room to properly identify it. When I asked him again, he told me that. It was moving side to side and up and down and a whole lot of hovering. I thought maybe a helicopter, but it was super quiet. So take that as you will. He has absolutely no idea what it was, and he's old and crusty, so the memory is vague at best.
Like I said, it's likely that we'll never know for sure. I have seen weird aircraft like that myself while out on training exercises with the Army. And while I'd love to know WTF, I was seeing there's nothing to go off of other than cell phone videos of a weird green light bouncing up and down in the sky. Neat photo though. Be sure to post the other one if your dad finds it.
For sure, I'm also military and have seen lights off the side of my plane traveling to Europe, but sadly never during exercises. I would also love to know what weird pictures or stories you all might have that you'd like to share as well. I love hearing what stories people have to tell. Anything related is appreciated. Stories, images, theories, government cover-ups, etc. My dad's image reminds me of this craft from a sighting in Cedarville in 1982.
The gunner of the Bradley carrying my squad saw a faint light bouncing around the sky through his gunner's thermal sight during a field exercise on Fort Riley a couple years ago. The thing jumped up and down, did some zigzags, stopped in place, and then vanished. He filmed it on his phone and showed the rest of us, but we never figured out WTF it was. I also saw a weird green light doing the same motion somewhere to the west of the same base while driving home from Thanksgiving at my parents' place. It was like 2 in the morning, and as I stopped at a stop sign, I saw it come over the wood line by the post golf course, do some bounces and movements, and dip back down. Both things could have been drones, but there's no way to know for sure. The one the Bradley gunner saw was visible in the thermal spectrum from several thousand meters away.
Does your friend still have the video recording of it? That would be really cool to see. I saw my UFOs while flying over Atlanta on my way to Europe. Never told anyone about it either because nobody would believe me. Everyone else on the plane was asleep when this happened. I was looking out the window while listening to music and watched as a huge fleet of lights flew past the plane about 6 or so miles away. The best way to describe it was a GIF I found that perfectly describes what I saw, albeit they flew slower and not in sync. I'll post it, but it was nighttime, and the plane was dark, so there was no reflection coming from behind me mirroring off the glass. I thought it was a plane, until I saw more and more until I lost count at 15. There were dozens of them all flying through the clouds. I still have no clue what I saw. When I asked another friend of mine who was in the military, he told me that you will see some really weird shit in the sky at night.
Dumping. Mark McCandlish. It was a fellow that I knew. His name was Arthur Reed, who took this photograph in 1982. He was just exploring Northern California by car. He was driving somewhere about 10 miles north of Cedarville, and he saw a large group of people that had pulled off the road, and they were all sort of looking off to the west. And so he, just out of curiosity, stopped to see what it was. And off in the distance was this immense black thing, big, large V-shaped vehicle, and the shape of it was what kind of gave it away as the possible product of Lockheed Skunk Works, because it had the same sort of faceted flat surfaces like a stealth fire. The craft looked an awful lot like a large black V, and in the middle of each of those 2 wings, or legs, or whatever you want to call them, which were really thick and not aerodynamic in any way, shape, or form, but there was a large white sphere.
Could it be connected to the Nevada lights and the footage of it hovering over the desert? The sketch I posted theorized that it looked jagged in geometry, but this states that it was a triangular object. Very interesting.
And then there was one up in the very front where they kind of came together.
and there were seams on the surface of the thing that looked like the different parts of the vehicle could be articulated and folded up into almost a triangular shape. There were a series of red lights that went from the nose back towards part of the fuselage, where the wings joined together. And the thing was in a nose down, banked to the left, and it was hovering in this position about maybe 250 feet off the ground, and it was maybe a quarter of a mile to a half a mile off the roadway. Very large. He said that he thought that this thing was somewhere between 300 and 600 feet on a side. It was that big. He said that it was making this low, pulsating humming sound, almost like something you'd see in a science fiction movie, sort of this whirring sound kind of sound. But he said it was so powerful, so loud, that you could feel it in your chest, that your chest would kind of vibrate and resonate with the sound. And the people that were there that had pulled off the road represented kind of like a cross-section of what you'd find in America. The deeply religious people that are crying and on their knees, praying to God to deliver them from this chariot of the devil. There were other people who were running towards it and waving and saying, "Take me for a ride." And there were other people there hooting and hollering like they were watching a fireworks show on the 4th of July. In the photograph in the foreground, you can see people standing in the bed of their truck, and you're seeing them all from the back, so you can't tell exactly what they're doing. But a lot of them, their arms are like this, up in front of his eyes, like they're watching it through field glasses. There are other people just sort of standing around, just taking it all in, watching everything. But he said that this thing sat there for the better part of a half an hour, and that's why there were so many people that had pulled off and were watching. And apparently there was some kind of a flight control issue with this thing, and it had initiated a bank, and then they couldn't pull out of this dive, so they just stopped, and it was hovered in this banked, nose-down position. And so apparently whoever was working on this thing was not able to repair that particular problem. And so the way they resolved it was this thing continued in its bank. I have to turn my hand the other way to do it right, but imagine this. His hand is now face up and he's pointing to his palm. Is the upper surface like this. So the thing flips end over end like this, the top rising up and back. But at the same time it continues to roll. So it goes like this. It first rolled to the right, and then the nose twisted up and back, and it's pointed up and away from the crowd. It starts to climb out slowly, getting louder and louder, and then it gets to about 5,000 feet and goes just like that, out into space. But he said he went back about a week later, and he parked his car in the same spot, and he was walking out to see if maybe there was any evidence on the ground that this thing had been there. Maybe something got dropped off of it, or maybe there was crop circle type evidence, that kind of thing. This Air Force truck comes rolling up, the dark blue with the yellow stencil on the side. United States Air Force, and a couple of military cops tell him he needs to get out of there and leave immediately, or they're going to arrest him, and they're going to impound his car. So he leaves.
Fascinating. So this craft possibly had a stall and failed to fly correctly, so they had to suspend it mid-flight to correct it. I didn't know the further story behind this sighting, didn't know it went in that deep. Thank you for the dump, this was a really good read.
I have witnessed 2 UFO sightings in my life. First one, 2003, North Las Vegas. Walking back home by myself from a friend's house. See 2 bright, multicolor lights high above the horizon near Nellis Air Force Base and the Motor Speedway. Then a bunch of smaller lights come out of the right light moving towards the left light. Then they became solid lights again. Then again, a bunch of smaller lights began moving from the left towards the right this time. From my perspective, it looked like moving right to left and left to right, but also gave me the impression they were spinning in a circle. The phenomenon lasted like 5 minutes. Then the lights vanished. I told my friend and told me they were probably flares from Nellis Air Force Base. But I know what I saw. I made this GIF attempting to describe what I saw back then. It was way high on the horizon. And I have looked for videos with the same phenomenon, but the one I found was long time taken down. My second event also happened in Las Vegas, and my wife was with me at the time, so she also saw it. 2014, North Las Vegas again. Driving to pick up our baby girl from my parents' house. My wife and I exited the car parked in the driveway. We were facing east. towards Nellis Air Force Base. We look up and saw over 30 cobalt blue lights across the horizon in no particular formation, moving from south to northeast. Looked like a cluster or fleet in random order of blue lights. Beautiful blue glow did not glitter or blink solid light. No sound. Moving very fast. We both were flabbergasted. I could not manage to pull my iPhone and record the event. It happened so fast. The entire event took about a minute or less. We saw the lights go behind the mountain range and became out of view. I was able to find a video on YouTube with the same phenomenon, covered it into WebEM.
For those just listening, the video shown on screen is of lights following each other around in the sky, while the cameraman is unable to hold his phone still, so he loses track of them every few seconds.
A comprehensive analysis of the UFO phenomenon, as well as original research and experiences of members of the CECD CE5 Initiative Working Group, has enabled us to make some specific conclusions about UFOs, extraterrestrial intelligence, and their motives. The summation of this analysis, which follows, is intended to assist both groups and individuals in their efforts to understand this complex subject. We have recorded only those conclusions for which we have a high level of certainty. General conclusions. Some UFOs are extraterrestrial spacecraft, ETS, which are piloted by extraterrestrial biological entities, EBEs, who originate on another planet and most likely another star system. More than one extraterrestrial civilization is represented in the current activities involving Earth. These extraterrestrial civilizations are working in concert and not competitively, although there is some specialization in function and activities for the various groups. This indicates that there exists either an emerging or well-established organization for these groups. These beings have bases within this solar system and may maintain temporary bases on Earth, particularly underwater. While various reports and speculations exist, we cannot at this time definitely state which planets or star systems are the home systems for these beings. Any specific information on this subject is very likely to be incorrect due to the security considerations of these beings. That is, given human tendencies towards war, aggression, and violence, open disclosure of their planets of origin would put these planets at potential risk should human military interests unravel the energy and propulsion technology of their craft. The variety in sizes and shapes of ETs observed is due to A. Varying civilizations of origin, and more importantly, B. Specialization of function, which include general reconnaissance, medical research, central command and base operations, energy generation and transfer, and human technology, military and space program research and reconnaissance. Sudden and fully open contact with human civilization has been avoided because of a number of interrelated factors, including A. The need to avoid an untimely disruption of Earth civilization, including military, political, geopolitical, cultural, economic, technological, and religious upheaval. B. Risks to their own civilization and people, as well as overall mission, given human xenophobia and tendencies towards violent armed reactions. C. Up to this time, such massive and open contact has not been necessary, and has not been consonant with their overall long-term mission and purpose. See below the question of intent, since their purpose is not acquisition-oriented or disruptive. A plan is in place to allow for gradually broader and deeper contact with human society and individuals so that humans may become accustomed to the reality of other intelligent beings in the universe, and so that needed research and observation may take place on both sides. Limited but increasing opportunities for bilateral and human-initiated contact will occur in the reasonably near future. Sudden and large-scale contact will occur only in the event of a significant worldwide emergency, man-made or natural. While extraterrestrial intelligence observation and interaction with Earth is probably an ancient as opposed to purely modern phenomenon, the marked increase in activity coinciding with World War II and the dawning of the nuclear age indicates that extraterrestrial intelligence are quite concerned about this transitional stage of human social evolution. They are particularly concerned about human nuclear weapons and technology and their potential for worldwide destruction, and possibly for their potential threat to extraterrestrial intelligence, although this is nominal. These beings are further concerned with our peaceful transition to a world society, international peace, and the establishment of a just, effective, and representative world government expected to occur within 10 to 15 years or less. Extraterrestrial intelligence technology is strictly guarded by both extraterrestrial intelligence and human governmental agencies because of its potential for military applications which would greatly threaten world security. It is imperative that this technology not find significant human applications until such time as the Earth attains international peace and an effective world government. The U.S. government, at least at the level of a highly compartmentalized above top secret group, has known about the reality of these extraterrestrial spacecraft and their occupants since at least 1947. A strict secrecy and a worldwide cover-up of these facts have been maintained due to A. Fear of public panic and social disruption. B. Security issues surrounding possible military and technology applications of extraterrestrial intelligence technology, especially in the setting of a world beset with Cold War tensions and competing interests. C. Uncertainty and mistrust regarding extraterrestrial intelligence motives and ultimate intentions. D. Embarrassment and consternation over human military inability to secure world airspace from repeated penetrations by extraterrestrial spacecraft. E. Embarrassment and loss of face resulting from disclosures concerning how this matter has been handled, such as the harassment and ridicule of innocent civilians and military personnel, the withholding of information from the public and Congress, etc. The U.S. government possesses several extraterrestrial spacecraft and the deceased bodies of several extraterrestrial biological entities. While there is evidence to strongly suggest that these agencies are attempting to reverse engineer these craft, such efforts have not been functionally successful, although a number of secondary and partial discoveries have resulted from this research. The nature or reality of these craft and these beings has been incorrectly characterized by some as belonging to another dimension or reality from this dimension. Unfortunately, these statements are made without fully considering what this reality is. A more correct understanding of this is that the full spectrum of reality is a singular, integrated one, which may be perceived wholly or in its various aspects, such perception being entirely dependent on the level of consciousness of the perceiver. The various aspects or dimensions of this reality, which are limitless in number, are not restricted to or by time and space as we know it commonly. These beings and their craft belong to the same reality as humans. However, their advancement in the realms of physical science and the science of consciousness has given them competence in a broader aspect of the full spectrum of reality than is usually experienced by humans. The difference, then, is one of degree and not fundamental reality, since humans potentially have access to all aspects of the full spectrum of reality, just as extraterrestrial beings do. These differences are not insurmountable, nor are they truly fundamental. In fact, they are relative and only temporary. While these beings are utilizing and experiencing a broader aspect of the full spectrum of reality, so too can and will humans, for we are as interdimensional by nature as them. Extraterrestrial spacecraft energy and propulsion, or space transfer systems, utilize principles and laws of the physical universe not yet fully appreciated by human science, and include A. Gravity, anti-gravity, and electromagnetic gravity technology. B. Space energy and so-called hyperdimensional energy systems. CC. Matter-energy interchangeable technologies. D. Possible consciousness-assisted technology, CAT, and technology-assisted consciousness, TAC. Some, if not all, extraterrestrial biological entities have advanced mental capabilities, which include telepathy, precognition, remote viewing, and others, indicating that they have developed the science of consciousness to a degree which parallels or surpasses their advanced physical technologies. Humans also possess these capabilities, but these remain largely undeveloped by most humans. Extraterrestrial biological entities are more developed or advanced than humans in a number of respects, but are not superior to humans as beings. Our point of unity and equality with extraterrestrial biological entities is in our mutual existence as conscious, intelligent beings. While these various extraterrestrial biological entities may have values and priorities which are different from those of some 20th century humans, their motives and ultimate intentions are non-hostile and do not include the acquisition or subjugation of the Earth or its people. See below the question of intent. The establishing of a lasting world peace and a just and effective world government is essential to the long-term extraterrestrial intelligence-human relationship. The question of intent. While not minimizing the strange and startling aspects of this phenomenon which some humans have experienced, our assessment of these visitors' motives and ultimate intentions is that they are decidedly non-hostile. Their primary operations and activities center around general reconnaissance of Earth and her societies, military, especially nuclear, observation and assessment, human social and psychological study and observation, human medical, physiological, and genetic research and observation, observation and assessment of human mental and spiritual development, Earth ecology research and documentation, including documentation of Earth life systems and mineral, plant, and animal specimens, observation of human technology and technological developments, observation, active monitoring, and if necessary limitation of human space programs, particularly those directed towards the nationalistic colonization of space. Close and active monitoring of international conflicts and international relations. Careful interaction with humans to convey certain information about themselves and to accustom humans to their presence. Our assessment is that these activities are derived from several ultimate motives, which include 1. Pure study and research of a rapidly developing intelligent species, human, during a time of transition to a world community. 2. A needed increase in extraterrestrial intelligence knowledge of world societies and human nature preparatory to future significant interaction, which will be mutual in nature and which will eventually culminate in the introduction of Earth civilization into an interplanetary network. This may require several centuries to complete. 3. Preparatory activities for continued readiness in the event that intervention is required during a major world emergency, such as a large-scale nuclear war. Such interventions would be in the protective form of A. Interception and destruction of intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. B. Alteration of missile coordinates and readiness. C. Emergency Earth-based activities when and where warranted. The minimum intervention necessary would be used, with the intention being the preservation of Earth as an inhabitable planet with adequate human resources remaining to sustain intelligent life here. 4. Emergency intervention in the event of an environmental or geological catastrophe of worldwide dimensions. 5. Preservation of Earth species, including human genetic preservation and/or augmentation as a precaution in the event of a worst-case scenario. See above. 6. Protection of space from hostile or military utilization by human national interests. 7. Extraterrestrial intelligence self-protective interests, insofar as humans have a strong recent history of coupling marked aggressiveness with rapid technological development. In this setting, monitoring and perhaps even limiting human capabilities may be important to extraterrestrial intelligence security. Human evolution to world peace, non-aggression, and a world government would remove this motive as well as several of the motives listed above. 8. extraterrestrial intelligence short and long-time goals related to the attainment of a significant human paradigm shift from one of fragmentation and separation to one of unity, to include the unity of science and religion, world political and eventual spiritual unity, and universal unity. This paradigm shift is dependent on the development of human consciousness, which is of particular interest to extraterrestrial intelligence. 9. The preservation and advancement of intelligent life in the universe.
The French TV show Striptease was a series of short documentaries that aired in the 90s. Each episode portrayed the everyday life of an outcast, no matter who they were. Most of the time, they were mentally ill people, drug addicts, family with normal issues, someone with a weird habit and hobbies, etc. They are often people from the French countryside, where they're treated as the crazy ones of the small village that nobody knows about except the people living here. The local nutsies, if you will. The show never tried to make it sensational. No music, no jump cuts, no editing, no intervention or words from the film crew. Just bare-bone footage of what's happening in these people's lives. In 1993 aired a particular episode that still stands out to this day. It is called La Soucoupe et le Perroquet, which can be translated as The Flying Saucer and the Parrot. This episode focuses on Jean-Claude Ladra, a 50-year-old man living with his 80-year-old mother, Suzanne Ladra. They both live in the same house and survive on the mother's retirement money and the few bucks they make by selling vine leeks. During the documentary, Jean-Claude explains to his mother that aliens do exist and live in the fourth dimension, whereas US humans only live in the third dimension. And Jean-Claude is building a flying device in his backyard that can reach the fourth dimension to meet aliens. Jean-Claude's spaceship is shaped like a dome and empty on the inside, kind of like an igloo. It is a few meters wide and about 2 meters high. It is mostly made of wood, reused materials, nails, and a few windows he glued with bathroom sealant. There's a door on the side that opens like a hatchback. Inside there isn't much. Only a few things on the grounds, a bed, and the most interesting thing here, the device that will allow Jean-Claude to travel to the fourth dimension. The device is made of 2 parts. The first one is this sort of sphere made out of paper journal and copper wires. The overall shape is molded and covered in glue and paper journals. Jean-Claude shows to the camera how he installs the copper wires on it. He shaped them as little squares to fill the whole surface inside the orb. He says this object is what will make him travel to the fourth dimension. Jean-Claude says it works with fluid rotation inside the sphere. When he is going to the fourth dimension, the fluids rotate a certain way inside the paper journal sphere, and when he will come back to the third dimension, the fluids will rotate the opposite way. He does not elaborate further in the documentary on the functioning of the device, or what the fluids could be. While bending the copper wires, he tells his mom he doesn't want to explain too much about the system so that the government doesn't try to intimidate her to get information. The second part of the device is the control panel. It is showed to the cameraman by Suzanne while Jean-Claude wasn't there. She goes inside the spaceship and takes out this piece of wood. On the back, is it covered in wires and electrical outlets. On the front, there are a few switches and a cross. This crucifix is welded on the piece of wood and is what Jean-Claude will use to control the movements of the spaceship. Suzanne then proceeds to tell the cameraman that Jean-Claude will just put his hand above the crucifix and tilt it in the direction where he wants to go. She said it works, paranormal, with his mind. She also states that the Earth is triangular shaped and not round, but doesn't elaborate. She then shows the tree they cut down so it doesn't get in the way of the spaceship when Jean-Claude launches it towards the Bermuda Triangle. And what about the parrot from the title The Flying Saucer and the Parrot? Well, Suzanne used to have a parrot. The 80-year-old woman tells the cameraman the whole story of that bird, how she had it for years, how she was known for having such a special bird, how she taught it how to talk, how it chose its favorite chocolate from the box, how it died by getting stomped on by her horse, and how she kept it rotting in a box 20 years after its death. She says that birds are one of the things she loved the most on Earth, and she wanted to keep it. She wrote her last wishes on the back of a postcard with a parrot on it, and it says, "When I die, bury me with my bird." This is the only thing she asked for her will. Where are they now? Well, first of all, Suzanne died in 1999. It is not known if her last wish to be buried with her parrot was fulfilled. Jean-Claude continued to work a bit on his spaceship, which became famous overnight thanks to the documentary. He then abandoned the project, which was still a famous attraction for the people who came in the village, but the city decided to move it in a public space in order to let the neighbors have some peace. Unfortunately, it already started to fall apart, and when they tried to move it, most of it broke down. It is unknown what remains of the spaceship and where it is to this day. In 2007, Jean-Claude was found guilty of sexual crimes that led to a sentence of 10 years in prison. A journalist then interviewed Jean-Claude and wrote a book about his story. In the book, he shares his experience with his first spaceship he ever built, the one before the one in the documentary, where he drifted away in the Atlantic Ocean for 91 days.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentexts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.